Hey folks, Brendan here from Bluelight with another video stroke podcast for you. In this one, I'm going to take a look at 21 frequently asked questions about the police recruitment process that you will not find answered on force websites. So I've been doing this now for 27 years. I've been in the police sector for 37 years, been helping people to succeed in promotion boards, specialist interviews, and the police recruitment process with a huge amount of success. Check the Trustpilot reviews below. It's one thing me saying it, but another thing on Trustpilot. 5-star reviews, and thank you to everyone who's provided reviews for me. Really, really appreciate it. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the things that are frequently asked in the police recruitment Facebook group. Again, check the links below to come and join us. There's 23,000 of us at this moment in time in that group. These are questions that just don't get answered on force websites. So pin your ears back, folks. Here they come. Might be a bit of a long video, by the way, or a long podcast. Bear with me. So the very first one, how will I find out if the police are recruiting and which forces are recruiting? Well, there's a national website called joiningthepolice.co.uk that's run by the government as part of the 20,000 uplift, but that's coming to an end soon. So they may drop that website, and by the way, it's not that accurate. When it says there's 29 forces recruiting at the moment, I've done little checks on that website over the past year or two to find that it's not 29, it's 24, or it's 23, or it's 33. It tends to lag behind reality by a few months. So the thing you really need to do is decide which force you want to join, and then check to see if they're recruiting. Next question, when in the year do they recruit? Now, there's no specific time as to when in the year police forces recruit. They will recruit based on their needs. So for the big forces, you may find that they're recruiting all year round, like the Metropolitan Police, Greater Manchester Police, West Midlands Police. But even they close the window at times because they need to process everyone that's already in the system, or they've quite simply got enough officers, they've got enough applicants. Smaller forces, they tend to recruit as and when they need officers. So they'll open up the recruitment window, and it might be open for a few months, might just be open for a few days, and then it'll close again. So there's no specific time in the year when forces recruit, it all depends on their needs. Number 3, how do the police go about recruiting? Well, it's all online. When I joined, I had to send a letter, a CV, an application form, which I had to apply for, write in for. All of that's gone now. Everything is online. Actually, with some forces, you can join the police without actually talking to anyone, except to give your inside leg measurement at the uniform fitting and to say, yes, I understand, at the fitness test. Apart from that, everything's online now. So be prepared for an online process. Make sure that you're computer savvy, because if you're not, you're going to be making all sorts of errors and mistakes, thinking that you've applied and wondering why 3 months later you've not heard anything back. It's because you didn't actually apply, or you didn't press the submit button. How do forces decide when to close their recruitment window? Well, like I said before, it's all based on the needs of the force. So what I have seen over the years is forces open up a recruitment window for as little as an hour and 15 minutes. Yes, an hour and 15 minutes. I'm not going to say which force it was, because quite honestly, I can't remember. I think it was one in the Midlands somewhere, but they opened up might have been Nottinghamshire or Leicestershire, don't quote me on that. Anyway, they opened up the recruitment window online, and after an hour and 15 minutes, they closed it because they had that many applications submitted. Actually, what they had was that many requests for the application form, the online application form, and I think they set the number at something like 500. Why do they do that? Well, because they can't cope with numbers above that. There's only a certain number of people who will be marking the application forms. Now, a lot of forces have moved away from that now to just an application form which asks for your name, date of birth, where do you live, basically if you've got 2 arms and 2 legs, do you fit all of these criteria, tick, 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 tick. And after that, you'll do an online national SIF. So they've tried to automate it as much as possible. I'm not quite sure if that's a great idea, because it's taking away some of the human element, but it's not for me to say whether it's a good idea or not. But most forces will close the recruitment window when they've got sufficient applicants. Now, like I said, I've seen it as little as 1 hour and 15 minutes over the past 2 or 3 years, because we've been in the uplift process. I've not seen many forces doing that, only because they've been crying out for people to apply because they've had to recruit numbers in unprecedented numbers. I've never seen anything like it. Something like 45 to 50,000 officers needed to be recruited over a 3-year period, which is going to have a knock-on effect on the police service in terms of it's going to be a very, very young in-service police service in England and Wales. But that comes to an end very, very soon. If you're watching this post-March 23, then it's already come to an end. And we're going to see forces being a lot choosier in terms of when they open up the recruitment window, when they close it. We're going to see, I think, return to what I witnessed in the start of austerity 11, 12 years ago. Next question. What are the police recruitment educational requirements? Now, this is really confusing because there's no national requirement for educational requirements. It can vary from force to force. Now, you will need to either have a degree or do a degree once you're in the police service. More about that in the next set of questions. But what this means is, for most forces, you're going to have a minimum level of qualification, especially if you're going into the degree process. If you're going into the police constable degree process, apprenticeship process, some forces a year or two ago would let you go in with a minimum of 2 GCSEs, but they all seem to have cut back on it now, and just about every force is asking for level 3 qualifications, normally 2 A levels or equivalent, or they might also ask you for UCAS points. The highest number of UCAS points I've seen is from Northumbria Police, who want 120 UCAS points. That's equivalent to 3 Bs at an A level. The lowest I've seen, I think, is 64 UCAS points. Don't ask me what the equivalent of that is in A level, but it's certainly nothing like 3 Bs. So it varies from force to force, and it's determined by the university that the force is coupled up with. You might also have to do further tests. So in Wales, as an example, at this moment in time, if you don't have a maths GCSE, actually I think even if you've got a maths GCSE, they make you do the University of Wales maths test, the maths entrance test. I've seen the questions. They bear absolutely no resemblance to anything you need to know in policing. However, the golden rule applies. Those who hold the gold make the rules. So in terms of educational requirements, make sure you meet those educational requirements, because they don't check them until the end of the process. And literally hundreds of people over the years have fallen foul of this. They've not got the right educational qualifications, and they get knocked back right at the end of the process, which could be a year plus of you dreaming to be a police officer, only to have those dreams dashed by the fact that you've not got the right qualifications. Next question, do I need a degree to join? No, you don't. No, you don't. Let's just put this to bed once and for all. This whole degree gate thing. Yes, you do need to have a degree at this moment in time to be a police officer, or that was the original intention, but it's become a bit messy over the past year or two, because quite a few forces have been running the initial police learning and development program, which is what existed before the requirement to get a degree or have a degree. And policing and crime commissioners have put the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, under an immense amount of pressure to create a fourth entry route, which is a non-degree route. It's not going to be the initial police learning and development program. It'll be something similar to the academic route, but without the need to study for a degree. I don't know how they're going to do that, by the way. So you're going to do the same work, the same assignments. You're going to have to get marked to the same standard, but you're not going to get a degree at the end of it. It's all going to get a bit messy. Expect it to be far more complicated than the initial police learning and development program. That is going to go. It's going to disappear because the College of Policing doesn't approve of it anymore. It's not licensed for forces to deliver. We're seeing the last few intakes of that at the beginning of 2023. After that, we should see some news filtering down about what the new non-degree route will look like. So at this moment in time, you do need a degree to join, or you will need to study for a degree, unless you're lucky enough to be on the initial police learning and development program, or unless you can wait until the non-degree route is announced. But like I said, don't hold your breath, because that might be a while. And post-April 2023, we're going to see a big drop in police recruitment numbers, because all the funding for the 20,000 uplift will have run out. And basically the country's not got any money. So the police are going to be the poorer cousin to education and health because they've had that massive amount of funding. I mean, it's billions and billions to recruit those additional 20,000 officers. Do I need a driving license to join the police? Just about every force will require you to have a driving license. Check to make sure that you've got a driving license that covers you for manual, not just automatic, because most police vehicles are manual. So you will need a driving license, but do check with your force, because some forces might let you in or into the recruitment process on the proviso that you get a driving license by the time you join. Next question, why is the police recruitment process so long? I mean, I've not seen any force manage to recruit people from application form to a warrant card in a pocket in anything less than 7 or 8 months. That's not a long time. That's a short amount of time in the police recruitment world. It took about that amount of time when I joined in 1985. So far from things getting simpler, things seem to have got more complicated. On average, I'd say it takes about a year to get in. The longest I've seen is just under 3 years. Yes, one of my clients, quite a few of my clients, I'm not going to mention the forces, but there's quite a few of them out there, only a few years ago prior to COVID, they were in a waiting list in a queue to join, which lasted just under 3 years. One of them actually commented to say, never mind studying for a degree, once I'm in, I could have got a degree in that 3-year period. On average, though, it takes about a year. Why does it take so long? Well, it's such a linear process. I do believe there's a future in bulking everything up together so that you do so many of the different stages all at once. But at this moment in time, you apply, and then you do the national sift, and then you do the online assessment centre, and then you get the results from that. That could take a while, and then you do your final interview, and you can only interview people at a certain rate. And then you get the result of that back, and then you've got to go through your medical, your fitness, and then you've got to go through vetting. I've seen people wait as long as 16 weeks to get the results from the online assessment centre. And at this moment in time in the Facebook group, the Bluelight Facebook group, check the link below for that group. Almost 23,000 people supporting each other. I'm also seeing people waiting 16, 17 weeks for vetting, or longer. But there's a group of people for one particular force at the moment in time who are complaining in that group, saying it's about 15, 16, 17 weeks they've been waiting for vetting and have not heard anything. I've got a contact in that force and I'm giving them a little nudge every now and then. And remarkably, we're finding the next day they're getting notification that everything's fine and have been invited into an intake. So sometimes I can give forces a little bit of a nudge depending on how good my contacts are. And the other thing that causes it to take so long is that you may actually succeed in everything, but they don't have an intake for you. And because they've not got an intake for you, they put you into what's called a talent pool. This is how talent pools work. So let's say that you scored just over the pass mark for your online assessment centre. You got invited for an interview and you did okay. You didn't do brilliantly, you just did okay. So you go into a talent pool. Now, if that force requires 200 people per year and there's 400 people in the talent pool who have passed everything, they can only take people out of the talent pool based on their score. This is down to a stated case, a case that went all the way to the High Court from the Cheshire Constabulary about 5 or 6 years ago, where the Cheshire Constabulary were deeming that everyone who's passed has all passed and they've all passed with an equal score. So they could select people who were from ethnic minorities or women, people who are underrepresented in the force. And that was challenged, and the High Court said, well, don't you mark everyone? And they said yes, and they said, well, that's how you judge people, based on their marks. And so that's what forces have got to do now. So you could end up in a talent pool for a long time, actually forever. And there's some forces out there in the past who've kept people in the talent pool so long that eventually they've written to them to say, everything is now out of date, you'll have to start all over again. So you do not want to be in a talent pool. Can I stress this now? You don't want to be in a talent pool for very long. What's the way to ensure that? Score highly. On the online assessment centre, those who attend my webinars on a regular basis get 90% plus. That's going to put you right at the top of the talent pool. And for those who come and join me every week and practice in the interview course practice webinars, they're scoring really, really exceptional marks, getting brilliant feedback at their interview. They don't spend long in the talent pool. That's the way to do it. So what next? Can I join the police with a criminal record? Generally, no, you can't. it's the police. They don't want people with a criminal record. However, it depends what that criminal record is for. So if it's for you committing an act of criminal damage where you damaged someone's window when you were 14 years old and you received a caution for it and you're now 26, I'd say that will probably get considered and you should be okay. However, anything to do with drugs, anything to do with dishonesty, so a caution for shoplifting when you were 15 for stealing some makeup from Boots, that's a caution for an offence which involves dishonesty, so you're never going to get into the police. Any caution or conviction for violence, you're not going to get in. Any caution or conviction for harassment, you're not going to get in. Any caution or conviction for public order offences, you're not going to get in. So there's several offences that are just big no-nos. If you've been cautioned for them or convicted for them, it's a no forever. Things like drink driving, you might have to, no, you don't, not might, you will have to wait 10 years before you can get in, but forces could still say no, because the last thing they want is you to have a drink driving conviction. That's going to impact on their insurance, and also it's going to impact on any case that you deal with that involves drink driving, because you're going to have to declare on every case file what your previous convictions are. So most forces would much rather you do not do that, because you could face embarrassing questions at court. Questions along the lines of, so officer, you're bringing this case to court for drink driving. Is it not the case that you've got a conviction for drink driving? Just doesn't sound right, does it? The optics of it are no good. So yes, you can join the police with a criminal record, but it depends what the criminal record is for. Can I join at 18? Yes, you can. The rules have been changed. It used to be 18 and a half, it's now 18. You can now apply when you're 17. So on your 17th birthday, you can apply to join the police. Make sure you've got some life experience behind you though. It doesn't have to be anything amazing. Some kind of part-time job, Duke of Edinburgh, Scouts, some kind of volunteering. Doing something more in your life than sitting on your backside playing on your Xbox. Actually, I once got asked this question by someone who said, it seems very unfair, the police recruitment process, because I study at school, I've got good grades, the rest of the time I spend on my Xbox with my mates. Right, and? Well, it seems unfair that I just can't seem to get in. Well, it's because you've not done anything with your life, that's why. They're looking for people who've got some life experience, some behaviours they can demonstrate of decision making, working with others, taking responsibility for taking action around something that needs fixing. Playing on your Xbox, that's not going to cut it, I'm sorry. So yes, you can join at 18, but you do need to have something to talk about at your interview. And you'll find that if you've got those sort of Saturday jobs, a little bit of volunteering, or you've done sports, that you will have enough to talk about. I will help you interpret those experiences so that you can portray them as positive experiences in your interview. Next question. The other end of the spectrum, can I join the police in my 50s? Yes, you can. The oldest person I've supported in the recruitment process was 57 years old. He came to me having succeeded in the military, having succeeded in setting up numerous businesses and then flipping them, selling them. This guy was a millionaire. He didn't need to join the police, but it was a childhood dream. And I supported him and helped him in the police recruitment process, and he joined the police, and he had 2 amazing years in the police service. I remember him writing to me, sending me an email once he'd finished to say that he'd had the most wonderful 2 years ever, to thank me for helping him succeed in his childhood dream. And he was particularly pleased because he got a small pension. He didn't need the pension. He was a millionaire. He didn't tell anyone in the police he was a millionaire. And rightly so, I think. He is quite a private individual, but I'm so pleased for him, helped him achieve his dream. That'll be 56 now, because the student officer period is 3 years generally. So it may be 56, but certainly in your 50s you can join. Can I join the police if I have a neurodiverse condition such as ADHD or autism? Yes, you can. There's actually societies within the police to support people who have autism or ADHD or dyslexia. If you have those superpowers, there's no reason why you can't join the police. You see the world often in a different way, in a more remarkable way, in a way that is certainly needed by the police service. So yes, you can join, although the extent of your superpower will be looked at in the medical process, but certainly there's no reason why you can't join the police service if you have one of those superpowers. Next question, can I join as a detective? Yes, you can. More than several forces now have direct entry detective schemes. It's a really good opportunity. It's a very, very difficult role being a detective, so you really do need to understand what you're going to put yourself through. There's a national shortage of detectives, which is bizarre. When I first joined the police, the queue to become a detective was massive. It was like 2 or 3 years long. Now, if you walk in one day wearing a suit saying to your sergeant, I quite fancy being a detective, by that afternoon you'd be investigating serious crimes. Actually, it's not quite like that, but there is a shortage of detectives nationally, and that's why the direct entry detective scheme was introduced. I think it's a really good scheme. I offer a lot of support for people to succeed in it, especially for the Met Police, because they've got a really challenging additional assessment that they call the bolt-on. It involves an in-tray, a briefing exercise, and a role play. I'm quite proud actually that my coaching has worked so well that every person I've done some one-to-one with who's gone for the bolt-on has passed it. But it is challenging. I do think it's one of the most challenging assessments out there. Can I join as a direct entry inspector or superintendent? Well, yes, you used to be able to, but that opportunity has now gone. It existed for a few years. It was Theresa May's baby, I think, when she was Prime Minister. She wanted a direct entry scheme for inspectors and superintendents to take advantage of the talent that existed outside of the police service. Quite a lot of chief constables pushed back and said, don't want to do that, thank you very much. I've got enough talent in my force. I don't need outside talent. I'm not quite sure how successful it was. Reading between the lines, it doesn't exist anymore. It's being reviewed. It's being under review for a long time now. I'm not quite sure if we're going to see the return of direct entry inspector or superintendent. What we do have though is fast track inspector. So I've got quite a few clients at this moment in time who've been successful in the force level board for fast track inspector. This is where they're going to go from constable to inspector in the space of 3 or 4 years. They've got about 2 years, 3 years service in at this moment in time. So they'll be an inspector with like 6 or 7 years in. You could probably do that on your own steam if you really wanted to, but this fast track process will give you all sorts of opportunities that may not exist if you do it under your own steam. Next question, will I need a medical to join the police? Well, yes, you will need to be certified as being fit and healthy by your doctor. Most forces make you pay for that, which I think is unfortunate because it can cost in the hundreds of pounds. Some doctors will do it for like £20, some doctors will do it for nothing. I think the highest I've seen is £160 or £80 for that medical certificate. And that can hold things up because if your doctor's busy, they're not going to assign it straight away. That will hold things up. If you have any conditions that need further investigation, you may be invited for a medical with the force doctor who will make a decision as to what happens next. So it's well worth checking with the force all the different medical conditions that they will accept and the medical conditions that get judged on their own merits that may require further investigation. Can I join the police straight from the military? Of course you can. The problem with it being is that there's only one force in the country that I'm aware of that gives you any kind of distinct advantage for having been in the military, and that's Nottinghamshire Police, who I think are quite forward-looking in terms of how they recruit. So they've had some cohorts which have just been military only, and they look to fast-track you if you want to into areas like firearms. I've had that personally conveyed to me by Superintendent, or now Chief Superintendent, Sukesh Verma, who's one of my contacts in Nottinghamshire Police, who we talked about it a year or two ago about the opportunities for people who are in the military. So I think more forces should do that. The only problem being though is that you're going to go in at a low pay scale. So it doesn't matter what life experience you've got, it doesn't matter what age you are, you all start at the same pay point, and it's not that good at the moment. I think it needs improving by the government. When and if that happens, I don't know. But one thing is certain is that the pay scales will go up to a very respectable level within several years. So I think within 7 years, you're at the top of the pay scale, which is pretty respectable. Next question, can I apply to multiple police forces? Most forces won't want you to do this, but you absolutely can. One of my clients had 8 applications in and actually got offered 8 positions. He actually turned them all down and he now works for the Ministry of Justice. But he had 8 applications in. He was successful in all 8. Did a lot of one-to-one coaching with him, which is why he was successful in every one of them. And then used all of those skills he picked up in the one-to-one coaching to apply for a position in the Ministry of Justice and got that job instead. But forces don't like you applying to multiple forces. It used to be the case you could only apply to one at any one time, but the College of Policing changed those rules about 2 or 3 years ago. Quote that back to them if they give you any jip about it, but yes, you can apply to multiple forces. You can only do one online assessment centre in any 6-month period, so once you've passed your online assessment centre, you do need to declare to the other forces that you've got a pass in the OAC. Equally, if you've got a pass in the OAC, you can use that to transfer your score to other forces if they're accepting transfer scores. Here's a question. What's the difference between the Home Office and British Transport Police, Ministry of Defence, Civil Nuclear Constabulary and the likes of Belfast Port Police? Big difference. The 43 Home Office forces all require you to do the national SIFT. They all require you to do the online assessment centre. Non-Home Office forces like British Transport Police, Ministry of Defence Police, Civil Nuclear Constabulary, Belfast Port Police and other smaller forces that exist, there's not that many of them, in the England and Wales area, outside of England and Wales, Belfast is outside of England and Wales of course, they will require you to do their unique and individual assessment process, equally with Police Scotland and equally with the Police Service of Northern Ireland. Almost at the end now, folks. Can I apply to join the police overseas? Well, you could if you've got the right to live and reside in that country overseas, very much like you have to have the right of abode or British citizenship, leave to remain to be able to apply for the police in this country, and you have to have 3 years of residency as well, 3 years of residency. But you can apply to join an overseas police force if you have residency, if you are successful, if you've got residency in that country. I doubt if you're going to, but what you can do, and this is something I did, is you can apply to any force in the world who's trying to poach officers from the UK. So I think it's the Police of Western Australia are trying to do that at the moment, and they've had thousands of applications from the UK. Who wouldn't want to go over there? The pay's better, the conditions are better. It's not home though, so you may miss home, but it's up to you. There's opportunities in Canada. There used to be opportunities in Hong Kong. They've gone now. I've seen a lot of retired officers and officers who've got a lot of senior experience working in a lot of the Commonwealth forces, especially in the Caribbean, Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, forces like the St. Helena. I spent 3 years working for the Bermuda Police. So the opportunities are still out there for you, and they are awesome. Can I share with you that going to Bermuda was one of the best things I ever did. Ended up working for their special branch. Absolutely amazing experience. Last question, number 21. Can I join the police if I have a mental health condition? Yes, you can, but it's subject to national guidelines. Forces will judge your condition on its merits, but generally they want you to be free of any kind of prescription. That's not that you're not taking it, but you've not got a prescription. So you just saying I've not been taking my prescription for over a year is not the same as not having a current prescription. So once that prescription is finished for a year, or it may be longer for some forces say 6 months, but most of them say about a year, they will accept an application from you. Some of my clients have managed to join the police with a current mental health condition. One of my clients went through a very difficult breakup and had some medication as a result of that, and the force was fine with it. They had a very good letter from their doctor to say that they're slowly coming off the medication, and within a year I expect them to be off it completely. Death in the family, that sort of thing. It will be judged on its merits, but if you have got chronic depression, chronic anxiety, chances are you will get refused because you've got a mental health condition. Why? Because the police service is a very, very challenging role. It will have an impact on your mental health. It will have an impact on your mental health. So if you're already predisposed to having a mental health condition, then they're unlikely to take you on, because it could just make it worse and you end up being retired off, and that's not something forces want to do. Ill health, early retirement costs them a lot of money, so they'd much rather not take that risk. But it's not to say you can't, but each case is judged on its merits. So there you go, folks. A rather long video and podcast, 30 minutes, but I wanted to get these 21 frequently asked questions that aren't often answered on force websites out there for you to help support you in the process. Come and join us in the webinars, check the links below, practice with me on a weekly basis as part of a group, or join the one-to-ones with me where the success rate is enormous. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel and like this video or like this podcast, and I shall catch up with you in the next one. Bye bye for now, folks. Bye bye.